Have you ever woken up in the morning and before your feet even touched the floor, you already felt tired, already felt heavy, already felt like life was asking more from you than you had to give? Maybe the weight of yesterday followed you into today. Maybe the pain of last year still lingers, and all you want is just a little peace, a little hope, one clear reminder that God has not forgotten you, that you are not facing the battles of life on your own. I know that feeling all too well because I lived it. And for a long time, my mornings felt like a fight I was losing, until I discovered something that changed everything for me. I began starting my mornings with Psalm 27, and what happened will surprise you, because it didn't just change how my mornings felt, it started changing how I saw my life, how I carried myself, how I faced fear, and how I trusted God in the middle of chaos. Psalm 27 begins with the words, "The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid?" And when I made those words the first thing I declared each morning, I found strength where there had only been weakness, courage where there had only been fear, and peace where there had only been worry. Because the truth is, the way you start your day sets the direction of your day. And if you start it rooted in God's promises, nothing this world throws at you can shake your foundation.
I remember a season when my mornings were full of dread. I would wake up and immediately think of all the bills I couldn't pay, all the mistakes I couldn't fix, all the relationships I didn't know how to heal. My prayers felt like they were bouncing off the ceiling, my heart felt tired, my mind felt scattered, and every day felt like it was just going to be another uphill climb. Maybe you know what I'm talking about. Maybe you've woken up with that pit in your stomach, that anxiety in your chest, that voice whispering that things will never change. I lived there for a while until one morning something inside me said, "Don't let your first words belong to fear. Give them to faith." So instead of grabbing my phone, instead of rehearsing my problems, I opened my Bible and I read Psalm 27 out loud, my voice shaking, my heart desperate. "Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident." And something happened. Not on the outside, but on the inside. Those words felt like a shield wrapping around my heart, reminding me that God was greater than what was waiting for me that day. I wish I could tell you all my problems disappeared instantly. They didn't, but something more powerful happened. My spirit shifted. My posture changed. Instead of walking into the day defeated, I walked in knowing I wasn't alone. And that was the beginning of a habit that has transformed my mornings ever since. The more I read Psalm 27, the more I realized it doesn't hide from reality. It doesn't deny that enemies exist, that struggles are real, that pain sometimes surrounds us, but it teaches us how to see all of it through the lens of God's presence. David, who wrote this psalm, was surrounded by enemies, betrayed, hunted, facing pressure I can't even imagine. But instead of letting fear define him, he made a choice. And I realized I had that same choice every morning. I could either start my day rehearsing my fears, or I could start it declaring my faith. And Psalm 27 gave me the words to do that. Words like, "The Lord is my light," reminding me that no darkness could last forever, that His presence brings clarity when confusion tries to overwhelm, and His love brings direction when I don't know where to turn. As I kept praying Psalm 27 each morning, another part began to stand out to me. David says, "One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek Him in His temple." And that verse stopped me in my tracks because I realized something about myself. Most of my prayers were about fixing problems, about getting help, about wanting blessings. But David's prayer wasn't about any of that. He asked for one thing,
God's presence. He asked to be near him, to see his beauty, to know him deeper. And that challenged me because maybe the reason my mornings felt empty before was that I was chasing answers instead of chasing the answer himself. And slowly, as I began shifting my prayers, not just asking God to fix everything, but asking him to be everything, I found a new kind of peace. The kind that doesn't depend on whether the problem is solved, the kind that doesn't vanish when the day gets tough, but the kind that anchors your soul because you know who you belong to. I want you to imagine this with me. Every morning, there are two voices calling to you. Fear is calling, telling you to replay your failures, to rehearse your worst-case scenarios, to believe that nothing will change. But faith is also calling, telling you to trust that God is still in control, that his promises are still true, that his goodness is still chasing you. And when I began starting my mornings with Psalm 27, I was choosing faith's invitation, because it says, "For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock." And when you begin the day with those words in your mouth and in your mind, it changes the way you see everything. You don't walk into work the same way, you don't handle challenges the same way, because deep inside, you know you are hidden in his shelter, lifted by his hand, and set on a rock that nothing can move. And this began to show up in my life in ways I didn't expect. Conversations that would normally leave me stressed now left me calm. Moments that would normally trigger my anxiety now became opportunities to remind myself of God's protection. And slowly I realized that starting with Psalm 27 was training my spirit to see God's hand everywhere, even in the small things, even in the places I used to overlook. And that awareness built a strength in me that no motivational quote, no cup of coffee, no morning routine could ever match. Because it wasn't about me, it was about him.
One morning, as I was praying through Psalm 27, a verse hit me in a way it never had before. I remain confident of this: I will see the goodness of the Lord in the land of the living. And I couldn't stop repeating it because David didn't say maybe, he didn't say hopefully, he said, I will see. And those words became a declaration I carried into each day, telling despair it had no room to stay, telling hopelessness it had no place to live, telling my own soul that God's goodness is not just for eternity, but for right now, for today, for this season of life. And when I spoke that over my mornings, I began to notice little glimpses of his goodness everywhere, in the kindness of a friend, in the laughter of my family, in a door opening I didn't expect, even in the strength to keep moving forward when everything in me wanted to quit. And I realized the goodness of the Lord had been all around me. I just hadn't been looking for it. The psalm ends with words that became an anchor for me. Wait for the Lord, be strong and take heart, and wait for the Lord. And I'll be honest, waiting has never been easy for me. I like answers. I like clarity. I like things fixed quickly. But this verse reminded me that waiting is not wasting. Waiting is not weakness. Waiting is trust. Waiting is believing that God's timing is not late, but perfect. And when I carried that into my mornings, I stopped rushing into the day as if everything depended on me. I started walking into the day knowing everything depended on him. And that shift took so much weight off my shoulders, because if God is in control, I don't have to be. If God is faithful, I don't have to panic. If God is my light, then no darkness can last forever.
So friend, let me ask you, what do your mornings look like? Are they filled with chaos? Are they heavy with silence? Are they weighed down with fear? Or are they numb and empty? Tomorrow you have a choice. You can start your morning with fear, or you can start it with faith. You can start it with scrolling through bad news, or you can start it declaring the good news of God's word. And I want to challenge you, before you check your phone, before you speak to anyone else, speak Psalm 27 over your life. Declare, The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? Let those words set the tone for your day. Let them remind you that you are not walking alone. Let them whisper into your heart that God is your stronghold. And if you do this day after day, you will see a change. Not because every problem disappears instantly, but because your perspective shifts. Your faith deepens. Your courage rises, and your heart begins to trust in ways you didn't know it could. I've shared this with friends, and they've come back weeks later saying, I don't know what it is, but starting my day with Psalm 27 has given me strength I didn't think I had, peace I didn't know I needed, and joy I thought I had lost. And I believe the same can happen for you, because God's word is alive, it is powerful, it restores, it heals, it anchors, it guides. And if you give your mornings to Him, He will give your life a new rhythm of hope. So tomorrow, rise and speak it boldly, live it deeply, carry it fully, and watch what happens when you begin your morning with Psalm 27. I promise it will surprise you, it will strengthen you, and it may just change the entire direction of your life.